that protection, and all of a sudden we have radioactivity bathing our planet. That is, to me, is what leads, and there's no question that radioactivity does bathe our planet at magnetic reversals. No question at all. There's lots of studies that show that. And why somebody hasn't said, hey, that might lead to evolution, I don't understand. So to me, it's more akin to the biblical sense of creation than it is to Darwin's idea of long, orderly evolution.
In the book, you talk about solar flares, northern lights, the magnetic star, sunspots, and magnetic reversals. Can you talk a little bit about sunspots? Because we're in solar cycle 24, and a lot of people are quite concerned about some of the upcoming activity with sunspots.
Yeah, it's two different things, really. As sunspot activity decreases, I think that we're going to be headed into an ice age because of that decline in sunspot activity. But one of the things that I mentioned sunspots on the sun for is that I've had people tell me that a magnetic reversal would make no difference on Earth, that it wouldn't do anything to Earth. And yet, when you look at sunspots, which are giant areas on the sun that are cooler than other areas on the sun, those sunspots are created by magnetic reversals on the sun.
Is that something that's like well known in science?
Yes.
Okay, I never knew that.
But when that sunspot those magnetic reversals on the sun occur within the sunspots, then there's giant explosions on the sun where these flares reach out for hundreds of thousands of miles. So these magnetic reversals on the sun literally cause giant explosions on the sun, and I think that the same thing could happen on Earth, is that during a magnetic reversal that we're going to be having giant explosions in the sky above the Earth. And it looks like ancient Indian legends talk about asphalt, for instance, falling from the sky, about carbon falling from the sky. And this is where I'm out on that limb, Kim, because I think that during the magnetic reversals that carbon is actually created in the sky.
Fascinating.
And again, I'm not alone on that. You know, this book I had talked about earlier that was studying the Carolina Bays, they discovered that 12,000 years ago, at the same time as the Gothenburg, now they didn't mention the Gothenburg magnetic reversal. I don't want to be putting words in their mouth. I'm the one that's tying that together. But at the same time as the Carolina Bays were created, all of a sudden radioactivity in many parts of the United States, radioactivity in the ground, measures 1,600 times more than normal, some places 2,000 times more than normal. That would sure create a bit of mutation, I would think. And at the same time, they find layers of carbon around the world. And at first, well, I shouldn't say at first, still there are many scientists that are trying to say that layer of carbon around the Earth, a layer of soot, was created by humans, that maybe the ancient Indians were burning the forests in order to herd animals or something, or that maybe agriculture, that ancient humans. So, and we're still blaming humans for stuff that happened thousands of years ago. But the thing is that there are some areas, for instance, in the San Pedro Valley in Arizona, where that layer of carbon is more than a foot thick. And the other part about this is that there are layers, they have found what's called nanodiamonds, but they have found diamonds, little tiny diamonds, microscopic diamonds, all over the Earth, from 12,000 years ago, that were apparently created in the sky. And they were, I've read some articles about this. This has been presented at the American Geophysical Union. by geologist Anthony West. But he says that those diamonds, some of them were so small that they were the size of cold viruses, but other of those nanodiamonds could have been visible to the naked eye, and that they would have rained to the earth by the ton. This is his words, by the ton. And so there we have carbon pouring from the sky at a magnetic reversal. They're blaming it on a meteor. But the thing is that carbon pours from the sky on other planets, and a lot of people aren't aware of that at all. But carbon pours from the sky, rains from the sky on other planets, and I'm saying, why couldn't it happen here too?
What has been your greatest challenge with the reception of this book to the scientific and with the scientific community? You've cited so much science in here. That's why I'm wondering what your challenge is.
It's a short book, but boy, it's got a lot of information.
Yeah, it's packed.
I guess the biggest challenge still is the idea of carbon raining from the sky. That's just going a long ways for people, I think. And yet it did. I mean, it's there in the record. The nanodiamonds are there all over the world. The radioactivity is there all over the world. It would have been like 10,000 Tunguskas going off all at once. But the carbon, carbon does rain from the sky on Saturn's moon Titan, and a lot of people aren't aware of that because we are taught to think that oil and coal and all of these things are created by ancient swamps having compressed and compressed and compressed and turned into coal. And yet the Cassini mission, when it did its flyby of Saturn's moon Titan, was able to identify huge lakes and rivers of oil. They have images from the Cassini mission that show lakes of oil bigger than the Great Lakes. And I remember reading an article in the Seattle Times that said it's enough oil to make a Texas oil man drool, and it would. I mean, there's just more oil. One of those lakes, they called it Lacus Ontarius. Sounds a lot like Lake Ontario to me, but anyway, they named it Lacus Ontarius. It's bigger than all of the Great Lakes put together, and it's filled with oil. And I remember reading a book by Thomas Gold. He was an astrophysicist at Cornell, who is really against the idea that coal and oil are formed in ancient swamps. And he liked to say that as far as he knows, there are no ancient swamps on Titan, and yet that oil is still raining from the sky. Now there are old Indian stories about oil raining from the sky.
Are you talking about in ancient India?
No, I'm talking about Indian United States Indian.
Okay.
And maybe I'll have to find my reference on that, but it may be also in ancient India. But there are ancient United States Indian stories about oil raining from the sky and fire raining from the sky, and I think that happened during the magnetic reversals.
I notice also that your whole book was quoted in Mensa, in the Mensa Bulletin. The American Mensa Bulletin reviewed your book.
Yes, in saying that maybe the reason we can't find any of those missing links is because there weren't any, and that's true. I don't think there were any of those missing links. Those of all of the animals that have ever appeared on Earth, I think only like 6, all but 6 have disappeared, and so most of the animals on Earth appeared here in the last 2 million years. There's some that just messed Darwin up, Sharks is one of them that is remained.
Explain that. That was fascinating in your book. How come the sharks haven't evolved?
The sharks haven't evolved in more than 300 million years, and